Folks continuously comment on Magus' shadowy aura. One Zealian even calls him a child of a nightmare, which he definitely is within the context of the forthcoming fall of Zeal. We see our animated Poyozo doll friend again, talking about fate. This animated doll is quite a curiosity. It must have been created or animated by Balthazar. After all, Balthazar used somewhat sentient Poyozo dolls to aid in the party's Death Peak mission. He is also curiously connected to another Poyozo doll lover, Norstein Beckler, who gives these dolls as rewards for beating his carnival games. Balthazar also seems to specialize in augmenting life forms as well, most notably his new Innkeeper's Dome, which he is able to upload his memory onto. Some folks in Zeal also seem to imply that the frozen flame, the infamous sentient shard of Lavos, is what powers the Mammon machine, which echoes a similar implication that Radical Dreamers suggests. After gathering the local Zealian hearsay, Magus concludes that because the elemental tools have been locked up, and talk of immortality is rampant throughout the land, that the Mammon machine's activation must be days away. Thus, he decides that he must intercept this event. As Magus continues to make his way through Zeal, an interesting NPC named Vera can be found, whose name is another reference to Radical Dreamers. In Dreamers, Vera is the name of a mysterious old woman who lurks within Viper Manor. She has strange magical powers and seems to know that Guile is Magus. At the end of Dreamers, it's revealed that she is some sort of leader of the poor military, and barges in on the final battle between Lynx and the main party to claim the Frozen Flame. Here in Prophet's Guile, she is a Zealian who talks with Magus about vivid dreams seeming like reality. This makes me think that folks in Unhaza can dream their way into parallel worlds. With Dreamers being canonically a parallel world itself, perhaps the Zealian Vera dreamt she was the Viper Manor Vera. Kind of gives a whole new meaning to Radical Dreamers as a title. Another interesting aspect of Prophet's Guile is that items cannot be bought at shops. In this scene here, we see that Magus simply refuses to do any business with them. We will later see where items can be acquired throughout the game. Another Zealian within Unhaza tells Magus that Giannis, Magus' younger self, has been heavily affected by King Zeal's semi-recent death. What I wonder is why Magus didn't seek King Zeal as well as Shala when he parts ways with Chrono and the gang at the end of Trigger. My best guess at this is that he knew on some level that Shala was still out there somewhere, whereas King Zeal was dead and gone, at least until Crimson Echoes, which is a whole other story. In the DS Trigger ending, even after Magus wipes his own memory, he couldn't shake the feeling that he must be looking for Shala, although the feeling was much more obscured. As a side note, the memory wipe was also an implication that Magus was Guile in Cross, hence Prophet's Guile. As Magus exits Unhaza, he sees Gaspar with young Giannis, and a Lasher who serves as some sort of trainer. Gaspar speaks of Giannis holding back his magical abilities for some reason. It sounds more like a perennial problem, rather than one born out of the king's death. I think this is because Giannis may have been the type of person who needed to be put in a life or death situation in order to make this sort of progress. Throughout Trigger, Magus cites that he'd endured a lot of darkness in order to persevere through his predicament post-Ocean Palace incident. Some people just work better under pressure. It's interesting to note that in this dialogue, it is mentioned that the Sunstone was used to test whether Giannis could collect elemental energy in preparation for spells. Since by this point in time, the Sunstone was phased out more or less as an energy source, I worry that later Zealian children would have had the same test by responding to the newer Lavos energy via the Mammon machine or the Frozen Flame, which would indeed be a disastrous scenario. It is also ironic that the Lasher mentions that the Mammon machine could facilitate Giannis' abilities, since Giannis' surprise visit to the Mammon machine during the Ocean Palace incident kicked off the set of events that would exponentially grow his magical talents. After Magus eavesdrops on this conversation, he cements his decision to intercept Lavos at the Mammon machine's activation. He knows that Shala must be there to activate the machine, so she's guaranteed to be there. He also figures that his best shot to get to that moment is to make sure that the gurus are not there. They would likely be quite suspicious of him, and their potential words against him would be met with absolute trust by the Queen. He decides that he must concoct a way to sway Queen Zeal into trusting him more than she trusts the gurus. As we continue on throughout the kingdom, we see that the Blackbird is not docked. However, Magus can still visit the scaffolding. At this point in time, the Blackbird is being used to transport Earthbound folks to the Ocean Palace to work as slaves to complete its final stage of construction. I figured that there must be skyways, or something like that are on board the Blackbird to do the transporting. I don't believe the Blackbird can go underwater. I also imagined that they'd be locking up the Earthbound folks en route as well, given the rows of jail cells on board. Pretty horrible stuff. As Magus enters Kajar, we see our friendly new shopkeeper waiting on those elusive load shields. I'm sure you'll get those one day, my friend. We also talk to an interesting Zealian who mentions how they had once thought that magic was an inherent quality in humans, except for the Earthbound ones, who the Enlightened ones regard as a much lower class. Again, the Enlightened folks are generally blatant assholes in this regard. Anyways, this person says that new research shows that the potential for magical ability lies in all humans. But although this potential is there, this quality is not inherent to humanity. This is because in 3 million BC, humanity made contact with the frozen flame, which gave them this ability. Now, this quality is either dormant, like with the Earthbound ones, or ignited, as with the Enlightened ones. If magical ability is like holding a candle, then the Enlightened ones have their candles lit up, which is perhaps why they're called Enlightened. I figure that the ancestors of the Enlightened ones hoarded all of the elemental tools that gave them the edge on magical ability, namely the Sunstone. There's also, of course, the case of Chrono and the gang having their dormant magical abilities ignited by Specchio, save for Robo and Isla, with the latter proving that magic is not inherent in humans across time. Another Zealian in Kajar mentions that Janus is named after a star. In our real-life solar system, Janus is an inner satellite of Saturn, which is named after the ancient Roman god of transitions. This is very fitting for Magus, since throughout his story, in the whole Chrono Series, he assumes many identities: Magil, Janus, Magus, Guile. Some even argue that he's also Surge, but I'm not gonna open that can of worms today. But the correlation with the god of transitions is especially fitting for this particular story, where he assumes the identity of the prophet. We get the chance to see firsthand just how he changes identities. In Kajar, it is also mentioned by another Zealian that they hope the Queen puts the Mammon machine and the artifact to good use. I think we can infer that the artifact in this case is the Frozen Flame, especially if Prophet's Guile is adopting plot elements from Radical Dreamers. While the Frozen Flame is never directly mentioned by name in Trigger, it is perhaps indirectly mentioned in a book in one of Zeal's secret labs. In this book, it's referred to as a shard of a strange red rock, with great power, cultivating dreams, and creating love and hate. As a side note, the ancient Roman god Janus is also a god of duality. Further inside Kajar, one of the scientists mentions how they have kept prototypes of magic tabs stored in bulk in the Ocean Palace. This may help explain how magic tabs survived the fall of Zeal, to then be slowly scattered across the world as time went on. Also, a book in this lab mentions that Shala's magical abilities were instrumental in making sure that the magic tabs didn't leak out their magic. It seems like containment is a special magical strength of Shala's, since she's able to seal time gates. And of course, her presence alongside the Mammon machine is crucial in containing Lavos' energy,